Welcome back, everyone. Well, today I have someone who is not afraid to wear her heart on her sleeve. As someone who's had as diverse a career as I've ever known, this beautiful lady has done everything from commercial construction, working in coal mines, managing a removalist business, and growing it across the states, to being accepted on the Australian women's soccer squad at the age of 16 and competing for Australia all over the world. She was the only Matilda to score a goal at the Sydney Olympics and is a member of the Aboriginal and Islander Sports Hall of Fame. And her name is Bridget Starr. B, as she's affectionately known, brought humility and vulnerability to the conversation about imposter as we explored how this showed up for her in her personal relationships. This perspective really opened up the topic of imposter for me, taking it into realms I had not yet considered. I hope it opens up something for you too. Take a listen. Let's start with, so you're the owner of Air Locker.
Yep.
Yeah. And then what were you doing before that?
I was doing a lot of different things. So I was in commercial construction.
Yeah.
I was in a removals truck driving and hacking a truck. I went from that to actually managing and building a removalist company in practically every state of Australia with my boss at the time.
Okay.
I got out of the trucks and I would work from home and build the business, and yeah, we worked it up to about 20 trucks from two. What did I do before that? I've worked in the coal mines for between 8 to 10 years, I think, around Australia, driving dump trucks and teaching people how to drive the dump trucks.
Yeah.
I also cared for people in disabilities for a couple of years in Canberra as well.
Okay. Wow.
Challenging behaviour. Sorry.
I said that's quite a diverse career.
Yeah, well, there was nothing that I never thought I couldn't do. So some people actually picked me for the jobs.
Yeah.
I didn't actually pick the jobs. They were just presented to me and they thought I would be good for the position. So I just went along with it and yeah, learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
They're the major things that I've been doing in my life, besides traveling around the world from a young age for about 9 years, playing for the Matildas.
Yeah. So you started at 16, is that right?
Yeah, 16 was the thing. I was playing soccer at the age of 13. I actually wanted to play a lot earlier than that, but because my brother used to play, but my mum didn't want me to because she, at that time, thought it was not a sport for girls.
Right.
So she held off for a couple of years, but then I must have harassed her enough and yeah, she took me to my first game. So, which I always played with the boys. I never played with women until I got a bit older.
Okay.
I think that's what helped me excel.
Excellent. I'm just writing that down. So from 16, so you were
13 to 16, I was playing with men and boys, like, until it got to the stage where mum thought they were getting a little bit too big. I better start,
yeah.
playing with the women. But it wasn't just teams that I could play in. I had to actually trial out for the boys' teams to get selected. It wasn't just one of them ones you could just walk into. It was selection only.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd be the only female in the whole competition.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Yeah, it was just like playing sport, doing something I loved, and obviously the boys were a lot faster and bigger and that, but it never deterred me. I always had the support of my team, and as I said, I think that's why I excelled the way I did.
Yeah.
I had to learn to play with my head a lot more because of the people that were around me, which was a really smart way of learning now I think about it.
Yeah. And so tell me what that's like. So we're going to cover imposter syndrome today, right? And you've had a little bit of a conversation with other people around what that is, but did you want me to kind of recap it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so there's a couple of elements about imposter syndrome that I like, because I think it's quite a complex phenomena for people. And one of the ways of defining it is that it's obviously psychological. It's happening in your head, but it's a pattern. So it's something that you kind of learn to do in some way, shape, or form. And this pattern kind of manifests in you feeling like you're not good enough, or second guessing yourself, or it might manifest in ways like where you feel like you're a fraud, you know?
Yeah.
And when you describe like your history and where there's nothing that you couldn't have done, or you're you know, playing in teams with men, I'm not hearing any of that, you know, in your speaking, but obviously it's a real internal process, imposter syndrome,
Well,
you know? And so
yes,
people can
because
be really confident, but they're actually freaking out inside.
well, the thing about that is, in my sport, there was no imposter. I never thought that I wasn't able to do something. I think it was more in me, internally in me, that were more of the imposter, where I would question my looks or I would question my worthiness. That's where in my personal life it was about me, not what I could do. So is that what you mean? Like for people, it's more internal?
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
internal. And
Yeah.
you know, did you find that there were certain situations where whenever you dealt with that situation, those same feelings would come up?
I think for a long time in growing up, there was always things where, and I know majority of my relationships were because I didn't think I was good enough for the other person. So, you know, being a very spiritual person that I am now, and fully wanting to connect to myself more than ever in my life. And mind you, I'm 49 years of age, but I'm glad that it's coming around now. It's something internally now that makes me want to connect to myself more now. But I'm not sure where my mind was when I was back there, if I was distracting myself from me in sport, because I knew that I could do the sport, and the sport, my capabilities and my confidence there that was my outlet.
Right.
So maybe for a long time, this is just coming to me now.
Yeah.
Maybe for a long time I distracted myself, and that's why I feel I'm a bit of a slow learner when it comes to connecting inside and listening to me, and getting around that imposter syndrome kind of feeling of not being good enough, or not feeling worthy enough to be in other people's lives, or why would they want to be with me, or what have I got to offer?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, B. Like, I really acknowledge the level of vulnerability, you know, and candidness in terms of that, because it's not something easy to admit to. I know that in the research that I've done around this topic, I have imposter syndrome even now, and even after doing all these interviews and studies and what have you about this topic. And it's fascinating to me because there's all these different manifestations, and like what you've just described there, you know, in terms of like the sport gave you confidence and it was something you knew you were capable in, but then there's this worthiness kind of aspect that comes out in relationships. So it's an interesting dynamic how in one area of your life you can be rocking it, and in the other area of life, you know, there's all these fears and anxiety that comes up, and these feelings of, you know, like you said, why do they want to be with me? And I think that people listening to that can relate, because part of the aspect of imposter syndrome is a bit like we'll either procrastinate or we'll hide out. And I think that hiding out, you know, happens both in your career or in your personal life. And then there are other manifestations. So just looking at my notes here, one of the ones that sort of stood out to me was around self-sabotage, you know, and
Queen of that.
what do you want to say about that one?
Queen of that. And that self-sabotage, that again it's got a big connection with imposter, because it was me internally sabotaging to protect myself, because I didn't have that self-worth, or in a relationship, I'm only purely talking for relationships,
Yeah.
when somebody else is involved, when the heart and feelings are involved, that vulnerability, I never had that vulnerability. I was scared to show vulnerability. I needed to be strong. I felt that I needed to be strong,
Yeah.
to protect myself. So
Mm.
I've learned along the way now, my yin and my yang were always unbalanced. I was very yang. And so that more feminine yin in the meditation, the breath work, the gentle energy is something that, I feel has helped me in my journey now, and I can really connect to it. So, as a young person, you don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It was only the other day I was at a retreat, and I had an Lumi massage,
Oh,
a
yeah.
Hawaiian, yeah. And the lady sat across from me, and she told me that I am spirit. And I said, but I feel that I'm authentic and I'm real. And she says, but that's what spirit is. It's light and love. So to this day, I'm still building internally into a more peaceful. I'm in peace now. My mind is in peace. My body is in peace. And
Yeah.
the reason for that, she was telling me, is to attract, to raise your vibration and to attract. So it's taken me a while to get here, but I'm very happy to where I've got to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I did some during COVID, I was traveling, I was on the road and in the outback, and I took on writing for 30 days every day and just publishing, what I was writing. And it became really apparent to me that I grew up with boys, so all my cousins were boys. I was the only girl. And I looked at the women in my family who very traditional kind of family where the women did all the cooking and the cleaning and the men sat around and drank whiskey and talked. And I remember sort of looking at that going, I am never doing that. Like, I'm not going to be that person for somebody else,
Yeah.
But I also saw being a female as a weakness, and I rejected it. And I was like about 6 years old when my brother was born. And then as we started to grow up, I used to look at him and go, you know what? He should have been the girl and I should have been the boy. And it took a long time for me to understand. Like, I knew that I thought that, but it took a long time to connect the dots. And then, like you said, very much in my masculine. So it was a threat to become vulnerable. I was not in control. I didn't know how I was going to be. It takes a lot to be able to be in that space,
Yeah.
So for you, I guess what I'm hearing is like the imposter is very much in that, in the relationship sort of realm. So what have you learned? Like, I'm hearing you say things like learning more about who you are and connecting with yourself. So, is it through the meditation and the breath work that you learned that, or are some other strategies that you could share with people?
So I think it's a life journey. When I look back, I've always been spiritual. I've always, thought I was a little bit different, or I never judged. I believed in the unseen. I didn't have to see something like science. Science will show you that it's real. But if people say there's mediums out there and they see this and that, I've never seen that, but I don't doubt stuff like that. I'm very open-minded. So I guess being open-minded, that's one of the things I've carried with me my whole life. I think being judged when I was younger as well was a part of that imposter syndrome, because my sexuality, I dated women. So, I mean, I dated guys as well, and I dated women. But for a long time, I felt safe, I guess, maybe. I liked the softness and the vulnerability of the women, and maybe that's what I wanted for me. When I'm thinking about it right now, because as I speak to you, like I'm fully being vulnerable with you now and completely opening up about my life.
Yeah.
And I think being judged, you know, when you live in a small town and people looking at you and saying, oh, she's a lesbian or gay, I think that bothered me somewhat in a little way, because I would never look at people and put people in boxes.
Yeah.
The way I looked at people was I trusted in people. I liked people. I liked to smile and laugh. So I guess I could have been a little bit naive in a way growing up, or just wore my heart on my sleeve, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, being young, like, how else would you be, you know?
Yeah.
So
I had an amazing mother too that would always reassure me that it wasn't me, because she knew me more than anybody and better than anybody else in this world. And lucky for her, I had support along the way. It still didn't take away everything, but it was that at the end of the day, I had that voice in my head trying to remind myself to keep moving forward and not to take it personal. But the most fascinating thing about life is every day I'm learning more. So what happened was this year, I woke up one day at the start of the year. It was amazing. And I felt about letting go this time.
Yeah.
And it was internal. It was nothing that I wanted to practice. It wasn't something I'd written down in my diary and said, right, I got to follow that.
Yeah.
It actually was a feeling inside of me that wanted to let go of material things, let go of restraint, just let go. And I started the year like that.
Yeah.
And then I just ended up in a retreat, 3-day retreat just last week. And the letting go, the pressing pause, the yin, like just my manifesting, or the way I was thinking was just attracting these things the whole way along. So that's how my year started, with finding that thing. It's purely on the inside of me. And now I'm eating better, so I'm choosing better foods to eat. I'll listen to my body more now. If I feel tired, I'm not going to push myself and train. I remember the yang and the yin. Let's go a bit more yin. You know, I listen to nice, calming vibration music in the car now, just tunes, and then I'm a better driver for that. You know, I'm just relaxed. I'm not in a rush anywhere. And it doesn't matter if I get every red light, you know. Well, it might, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm practicing and it feels so good. And it's the whole thing started as well because I want to be a better parent for my child.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it too. So, and he's 4 in August, so he's a little sponge.
They are so adorable at that age, you know. And you can have fun with them and they're interacting. So what kind of, like, if you don't mind me asking, obviously this is not scripted, but like, what do you have in mind in terms of your philosophies around parenting, or the kind of things that you want to be able to instill in him, knowing where you've come from and what you've had to journey through in your life?
So we have a lot of laughs. We play and we laugh a lot. Mum, I'm mama, and then there's mummy. And mummy's very creative, which is really good. So she's the little thing. She does the little creative and makes cards. Might be 6 o'clock at night after dinner. He's like, I want to make a card, mama. Mummy. So mummy and Bodhi will sit down. They'll make a card together. But then I'm the fun one that wrestles and plays, and you know, we have pumble time and I'll take him on rides and to the park. Not that his other mum doesn't do that, but it's a lot of fun. But the one thing I learned in a conversation probably a few months back was emotional response. So I think this is a big part of my yin, is that feminine emotional response. So not being stressed, or how we respond to something that's maybe not going the way we want it to. How can we make it so it's not freak out, let's, you know, be harsh, or it's emergency. Do you know what I mean? It's more of a softer approach to working out an emotional response.
Yeah. You know, have you ever read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
No,
it's a good one. I read that over 20 years ago. It's by Stephen Covey. And let me create the world of it for you. But basically, he talks about between every action and reaction, there's time and space. And so we use that time and space to consider, like, how do we want to respond in this situation? So it's like moving from reaction to responding. And it's a really powerful strategy, but it's also really powerful to kind of integrate that as part of how you do life. Because
definitely.
Often that pause gives provides an opportunity for lots of things to happen, you know, as opposed to just going into that reaction mode. And I learned that early, and I've managed to just, as I said, integrate it into who I am. And it's been a game changer in so many situations, you know?
I know. And that's when I heard this guy say it, when I was it was actually in a conversation about altitude, but for some reason this came out, and I'd driven all the way down to Currumbin, and there was just two other people. There was just me and my coach, Jose, and we're talking to the guy, and that came out. And ever since that, I've been on my journey with Sharon with hypnosis, because that's how it first started as well. I needed to change the subconscious. I need to change me in order to teach my son. He's like a mini me. So I think for you, if you say that's a game changer, I knew it would be a game changer in my son. And I was hoping, because I want my son to grow up and make good decisions. All my decisions, I made some good ones, but I could probably say I made a whole lot bad ones as well growing up. I was just very fortunate and lucky that I fell into the right place at the right time and had the ability to pick myself up and keep going. But I know my son's going to make a difference in the world, and he's going to put his name out there for sure. So the more we can give to him, I believe that's, how do I say that? Give him a good start in life and help him not make so many mistakes. Fair enough, we know that it's human error. We all do make mistakes, but some are harsher than others. And I'm just trying to limit them a little bit and let him fully embrace life, because it can be absolutely beautiful.
I really commend you on that. I had a similar experience. Like the first time I held my daughter, I was 23 years old, B.
Wow.
I was green as, and I just got this tap in the shoulder, you know, like spirit sort of speaking into my ear, and it was just like, the sins of the father get passed to the son. That's the message I got. And I just knew that if I didn't deal with my stuff and all the trauma and all the things that I'd been through, I was just going to pass this on to this little baby, you know?
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It set me up on a 24-year personal development journey. And I've done anything and everything that you can think of. And a lot of people, you know, accuse me over the years of being like a personal development junkie. And I suppose in some ways, you know, that was my way of hiding out, right? And now it's like, she's 24, she's cruising the world, she's wise beyond her years, she makes friends with people of all ages, and she's living her dream life. Like most people pay to travel, she's getting paid to travel, you know, and she set it up that way.
And that started with you. All started with you. Yep. That's amazing. I love that.
Even though if I look at my mum, you know, and that generation, they knew what they knew. But, you know, if I look at my mum, she has this determination and this really fighting spirit, you know? And so no matter how many times life has knocked her down, she just gets back up again. And so, you know, it goes back the generations, like everybody's contributed to this. And then it was my conscious decision to break the cycle and then, you know, do what I can for the kid. You know?
I think I was like you too in breaking cycles. So, but it was more breaking the cycle. It felt that, I guess, as we developed, we get smarter and we smarter, you know. There's no point in dragging ourselves down, because we know that being happy makes us feel amazing. Being sad does not make us feel good at all. We don't want to feel sad. It's for some people, they can get through it. For other people, it's just not a choice.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's great to be able to recognize those patterns as well. It's like part of, you know, what I teach people is understanding you know, we talked about imposter syndrome being a pattern, right? And there's these situations that occur, and that pattern just happens again and again and again until you figure out, I'm in a pattern. And all of this, to be fair, like all of this rhetoric and conversation and narrative about patterns is really fairly new, you know, in the common sort of space of popular culture and things like that. And, you know, the rise of Dr. Phil and whatever else. You and I, and the eras that we grew up with, this is, you know, that was never a conversation. Anxiety was never a conversation, you know?
Yeah.
So I think we got to cut ourselves some slack with where we're at.
Yeah.
So what would you, like, if you had a message for people listening to this, like what would be your advice or your message to them?
So if I was to look back and think about it, I seen something posted this morning on Instagram, and if just ourselves, so you, me, your mum, my dad, my brother, your friends, would all do a little bit of work on themselves. If we all just did a little bit of work on ourselves, and if we just focused on ourselves instead of focusing on the problems in life or this or that or, you know, all of the other, if we turned our conscious to ourselves and, you know, hung around people that were doing what you did, would you say you were just like giving everything to you. If we just did a little bit of that, then the world would have a different energy. And then we would create more energy in the world that was healing. More healing energy. And I can't, you know, you can't turn back time, but if I had, and for the time that I have now, I'm just going to continue to throw into me. Because listening to what you just told me, I'm on the right path for creating that person to teach my son. And that's exactly, that means the most to me in this world today, is my little mini me. And make sure he's got the best chances he can. And that comes from us as parents.
It certainly does. I remember when my daughter was 12, obviously her upbringing was completely different to my own. And, you know, I just have random conversations with her. So I was like, Charlie, what's it like to be 12 in 2012? You know? And she's like, well, and I'm thinking, you know, like she's had a fantastic life and all of this stuff, right? And she comes out with, you know what, Mum? I don't think I've had a childhood. I'm like, what? Like, are you for real? Like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay. So internally, I'm freaking out. Externally, I'm like, really, Charlie? Why don't you tell me about that? Like, I'm really curious, you know? And then she's like, well, you know, like she grew up in WA, and she's like, well, when I go to Southern Cross, nobody locks their doors. You know, I can hang out with my cousins. We run around across, you know, the streets and the neighborhood, and everybody knows everybody. But here, I can't play on the street. My friends are not close. You know, we lock our doors. And so I don't really feel like I've had a childhood. I just went, wow, that is fascinating, you know? But also, like, again, just even now, I didn't realize this until I'm saying it to you now, but the acknowledgement as a parent that I'd done the right thing. Because if that's what my kid is using as a comparison, then I'm doing all right. You know?
And it's
it's
interesting to ask your children rather than telling them all the time. You know, and that's really, that's a tool there as well, because I remember in my childhood, I was always asking my mum and dad questions because they never came out and told me about their life. I was curious about their life because they're more than just my mum and my dad. So Bodhi's very, very ahead in his time as well, and you know, he's not 4 yet, but last night he said to me, Mama, please come in here, we need to have a conversation. And I'm just like, well, how does he know even to put that in it? Like, that's how we do it. Come and sit down, let's have a conversation. You know, so, and we do ask him, I'll be driving along and he might be quiet in the back seat, but he'll be taking the world in, and I'll say, baby, are you happy? He'll say, yes. I say, are you okay? He says, yes, Mama, I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess looking back on my child rearing years, B, if I could give you any advice, and it's just in light of what I've just shared, that's kind of your I want to say the opposite of a red flag, right? Like that's your green tick that things are moving along in the right direction, you know? And
Yeah.
you're doing great as a parent or as parents.
Yeah, there's no book on that, and we're all very different individuals, and we all parent very different, and we parent very different too. But you know, from the jobs that we have, from the time that we have with our kids, from the different countries that we live in, like there's no right or wrong in how to parent. You know, it just depends on you and how you feel, right? Like our community, they're like
Yeah.
there's no they're right. It's just the feeling. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Just work.
Yeah.
Just make it work.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. How do people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch?
What would we be able? What would you suggest? Instagram, Facebook,
Oh yeah.
or what would you suggest, Jen?
Yeah, we could do Instagram and Facebook. That's fine. And just so anyone who's listening that doesn't know, we're based obviously in Queensland, and you own an air locker in Runaway Bay, so people could come and check that out.
Yeah, the altitude. It's a Airlock is an altitude training center, so training in less oxygen. It's not that bad though, is it, Jen? It's pretty good
It is
because
pretty
you
good.
train. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been taking my measures every week, so I'm tracking that.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes.
How's it look?
It's going in the right direction, Pete.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Leave me a comment and let me know what was your biggest takeaway. And if while you were listening, somebody popped into your mind and you know that they would benefit from listening to this, be sure to send the link to them. This series is just getting started, so go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll know when our next episode drops. If you liked what you heard and you want to know more, be sure to check out the show notes. And over the next coming weeks, I'll have some giveaways for you too. In the meantime, I want to thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.